Finding high quality watercolor pencils can look like trying to catch a golden snitch when you're getting started. Because of all mediums, and with watercolor pencils in particular, I find that you often do get what you pay for. In this video, I'm going to try the most expensive watercolor pencils I've found, the Caran Museum Aquarelle, to see what they're really about. I'll review them to start, and then I'll show you how I use them to paint a realistic golden snitch. I got the smallest set I found, and when I'm filming this video, prices vary between $36 for Amazon and $57 for the Caran website for the 12 pencil set. And in comparison, great quality watercolor pencils like the Faber-Castell Arbor Stir range from $19 on Amazon to $36 on Faber-Castell's website for a set of 12 as well. I haven't checked all the internet, and by the time you watch this video, you might find that the prices have changed. But what really stands out is that Caran and those watercolor pencils are pretty pricey. And this box is very sturdy and the pencils hold in place nicely. On the website, Caran writes the Museum Aquarelle watercolor pencil is not only a water-soluble pencil, it is a watercolor in a pencil form, and it's of extra fine quality. There's a light vastness indication on each pencil with a star system, and from the looks of it in my small set, it's mostly high, as 10 of the 12 pencils are rated 5 stars, which means excellent light vastness, and that also means colors in the painting shouldn't fade easily over time and are going to be more fit for artists who sell their art or want to make sure it stays intact for years and years. And as far as I know, this is mostly the case with Caran products, especially their professional line, because they do have other options that are more affordable for those who just want to have fun and practice. My set is the smallest one that I've seen exists, and it's got all the main colors including the 3 primaries, as Caran points out. But I noticed when I was ready to use them that I'm missing a white pencil, and I would have liked that for highlights. And you'll see how I fix this later on. The largest set I have found is an 80 color set, but it's not available yet. And a plus I'm seeing with these pencils is you can purchase them separately from a set, so at least it makes the purchase of a set worth it if you can replace each missing color little by little. We're gonna run a few quick experiments. I cut a piece of my Arche 100% cotton watercolor paper. It's cold press, and it's the same kind I'll be using for the art. It fits in the box perfectly, so I can keep the swatches I'm going to make. I'm just gonna color with each of the 12 pencils, and I'm gonna take advantage of this to see how they blend and to see if they leave pencil lines. Caran says the leads are strong, smooth, and soft, and so far that's the impression I'm getting. And I'm able to tell because I own about 10 other types of watercolor pencils, and some of them, the cheap ones, feel dry or the lead will break, but mostly with the more expensive watercolor pencils, the lead feels smooth when you color with them, as Caran says. The pigment seems to come easily and it's agreeable. Now I'm curious to see how these colors look when we activate them with water. Caran says their colors match the cap of the pencils, and so far it's true. The swatches also look pigmented, vibrant. And in my opinion, this is also an indicator of a good watercolor pencil, because usually the cheaper they are, the lighter colors appear according to what I've seen with the pencils that I own. I also like the blending looks smooth, barely any lines visible underneath, and I wasn't even careful when I colored. So far, I'd say these watercolor pencils are the closest thing I've seen to the Faber-Castell Arbor Stir, which are not as pricey, but still awesome quality. I need to compare them both side by side to really see the slight differences. So maybe that's the topic of a future video. Let me know in comments if that's something you'd like me to do. Now it's time to draw and paint the golden snitch and to see how the Caran Museum Aquarelle watercolor pencils actually blend and mix in a painting. Maybe as well as the golden snitch is fast and agile. Let's see. I picked my colors. I also added a white colored pencil from the Caran Luminance pencil line, since I don't have a white watercolor pencil here. I prefer to draw the line art with graphite and take most of it off with a netted eraser rather than starting drawing with a watercolor pencil right away, because I've found in the past that watercolor pencil is not easy to erase. I'm just going to start coloring most of the snitch with yellow ochre. I like it's so relaxing with watercolor pencils to color, but then so fast to activate and actually finish a piece, but I'm not in a rush at all. I want to add random colors for reflection in the snitch because when you watch the Harry Potter movies, you can see him and the surroundings reflect on the snitch. I'm going for bright green and dark ultramarine for this to depict mountains and sky, why not? I like to have a scrap piece of paper nearby so I can test my color mixes separately. Let's start activating this now. I'm trying to avoid the lightest areas. And when I activate the pigment in a watercolor pencil painting, I only use one single jar of water, one paintbrush, and a small paper towel. There really is less water needed with this medium than most might think. And it helps to control the pigment on paper too, and to make sure we activate each area so it looks like what we had planned when coloring. There's less chance for colors to mix and flow on paper with little water. I already know that a second layer will be necessary, as it's often the case when you want to draw or paint realistically, but I'm happy to see the color looks nice and vibrant so far. It's important to make sure the paper is completely dry before you add a second layer, and I'm glad because I see this drawing will take the second layer really well. I can see it's easy to deposit more pigment, and sometimes, depending on the paper, the pencil quality, or both, it can be hard to layer again. The surface can be slippery. If you don't press too hard the first time around, normally you shouldn't have trouble layering more color. I like to add brown in my paintings, and for the golden color I'm going for, I find it's perfect in combination to yellow ochre. It's brown, but it still very much looks like gold. I'm trying to build up the shadows here. And one thing I like to do, and that works really well with watercolor pencils, just like it does with colored pencils, is to overlap two colors in places, like here with gold cadmium yellow on top of those brown areas. I find that it helps to get smooth gradients instead of seeing a sudden shift in color. Let's activate the second layer. And look at this rich and warm gold color, really nice. So with dark colors like this brown, you have to be careful with watercolor pencil because it can get on lighter areas and ruin your coloring. So the way to avoid this is to activate small areas and to always rinse your paintbrush so you don't transfer the color you just activated on another area. That's how I'm able to keep the white and yellow parts intact. I find it can be even worse with a color like blue. It's so dark on top of the yellows and it will muddy them up real quick, so it's even more important with complementary colors like these here, yellow, orange, and blue. I'm going for a third layer because I want to nail the realism in this golden snitch and I want more vibrancy too. And I'm actually surprised the paper doesn't show any signs of being tired with taking layers. It feels really easy to do. Ash is really great watercolor paper, so that and the Museum Aquarelle pencils combined I think help. This third layer is also going to help me emphasize the shadows. And blue, like I said before, is dangerous because it's complementary to the yellowish orange golden tone I have on here, however we can call it. But like I explained before, if you blend the colors on sections and you clean up your paintbrush a lot, the dark areas will remain where they are and the slight mud-like effect will be perfect to give this golden snitch an aged look. You can see how this blue really enhanced the whole thing already, way better than brown. And I'll just take advantage of this to add that you really don't need a bunch of colors to create realistic art or to make a lot of colors in a painting. Let's blend this carefully now. There's no rush at all, especially with watercolor pencils. Shadows are looking great, but now it's time to add a little bit of shine and let's see how the luminance does on top of this. I haven't used my luminance pencils in ages. I see them as so precious, just the smell of wood and how creamy they feel, especially that white pencil. And you can see the highlights are subtle, but they really add to the piece. We're not done yet. At first I added the words that you can see on the snitch. I open at the close, but I erased them and I decided that I better draw them last. And I'm happy to see it's actually easy to erase on top of a finished watercolor pencil coat. I'm going to enhance that with black and gold cadmium yellow to keep the golden looks. And out of personal preference, and because I don't paint to sell my work, I just paint for fun and to experiment, I'll add white highlights with a gel pen. If you're going for high quality from start to finish, you might prefer artist white gouache. I like the gel pen because in these tiny areas it's easier and the white is really sharp. So do you think these Caran d'Ache Museum Aquarelle are like catching the golden snitch, or they're overrated? As far as I'm concerned, I really enjoy them so far, but I need to compare them better, especially to the Faber-Castell Arbor Stirrer pencils. If you enjoyed this video, I can suggest my watercolor pencil playlist that also includes water-soluble pencils like the Inktense pencils from Derwent. Thank you for watching and see you next time!